What's going on, family? Welcome back to the EOS Phoenix channel. Coming to you live from the mountain. You already know what it is. Want to thank you guys for tuning in. If you like this content, consider hitting that like button. Uh, I'm all decked out. I'm gonna do a quick look at this. I got the EOS hat on. Hopefully you guys can see it. I got the EOS shirt on with the EOS flag on the moon. What do you guys think about that? I think it's pretty dope. Um, so yeah, a couple exciting things going on right now. Um, we got obviously the um, referendum that passed, and so now users are able to vote on different proposals from others, or you can basically make a proposal of your own. I think that is pretty awesome. I'd love to know what you guys think about that. Um, and a couple different ones that are of interest for me, from my perspective anyway. One is the ECAF vote. And so the ECAF vote, it's basically a way to get rid of ECAF. I think there is, there is a role for an arbitration forum to play in at the DApp layer, for example, maybe different competing ones or user-defined ones, but I don't think we need a core arbitration at the base layer. Certainly not one that is centralized. So excited that looks like there's a lot of great support for getting rid of it. I put my votes in, and hope you guys join me in that as well. I think it's gotten quite a bit of votes, but as you guys know, there needs to be a minimum of, I believe, 150 votes in to actually qualify a proposal in terms of minimum voters. And then it also requires 10% more yes than no's. So just a couple things to, I guess, consider there with that. The other one is the Rex, which is an exciting one. Kind of a no-brainer in my opinion, but we'll see how it goes. Resource exchange, for those that don't know, is basically just a method where token holders who aren't using their resources, and when I say resources, I'm talking about computing resources such as CPU or bandwidth, allows you to rent those out to developers. In exchange for renting out your tokens to developers, you're able to receive a reward, a return on your resources. So that's a pretty exciting feature. But in addition to sweeten the pot, what they're also proposing is that in addition to basically a dividend in the form of rent for your resources, you also receive some of the fees from the core accounts, like the name accounts, and there's some other accounts as well. If you stake your resources into the Rex, you'd also receive that as well. So kind of two different ways to, they're making that proposal have value in terms of Rex and drive the usage for it. Now, obviously, to receive those rewards, you would have to qualify your voting as well. So you'd have to perform the minimum number of votes. I believe that was also kind of a way to incentivize people to vote. So we'll have to see how this goes. This is going to compete kind of with the Chintai classic way to rent your tokens at this point. And I believe they're going to also improve some of their features as well. So you're going to have two different ways to rent out your resources moving forward, assuming the Rex passes. So I think you guys know which way I voted for that one. Still very early right now, so we'll have to see how that all evolves. But it's looking, pretty interesting. So what else do we got going on? We have so we talked about the resource exchange. We talked about the ECAF. We also have the 4% inflation fund. So there's been some folks that have proposed to basically burn the 4% that's currently in those accounts now. And I think that's a good idea for now. We're seeing a lot of development without that 4% being used. I think the worker proposal 4% should, basically the faucet should remain on so that it can regenerate, but I think we should burn what we have in there now. And I think that, coupled with the resource exchange proposal, we may get to a point here where we're very close to 0% inflation, which would be pretty neat. For those that are voting, I think your returns will negate the inflation to the block producers. And so what a wonderful way to kind of demonstrate the power of EOS through that mechanism. So that's another one that is being looked at right now. Some have also suggested to maybe take a percentage of, I believe, those fees and put them kind of into an annuity plan where you could form a worker proposal group. So the idea would be you could stake those to the RECs, and then through the dividend you can pay out different bounty rewards to developers to make new tools for the network. So I'd love to hear what you guys think about these things. Still very early, obviously, but pretty exciting. And I think we got a couple million folks, but we're gonna have to get to 150, like I said. It is possible maybe for Block 1 to stake their votes and abstain. I think some of the folks that are working on the voting system have mentioned that. They'll provide basically a third option for people to basically vote and state that they're not voting no or yes, but they're voting in favor of seeing a result. And so if Block 1 was to cast their vote, you could actually get you have a better chance of getting the minimum number, that 150 million at least. And then it would be up to it would be up to voters to actually vote yes or no at that point, in favor of which one they're about. So we may actually see that this week, and we may also see Block 1's own proposals. I know Brendan Bloomer had mentioned that he had planned to do some of that. So that'll be interesting as well. So that's what's going on with the voting, guys. I'd encourage you guys to vote. It's pretty easy. There's a number of tools out there. So definitely send me a message if you're having issues with it. You can go ahead and use Scatter and vote through Scatter itself. You can use your Ledger. Like I said, a number of different ways to do it. So let's try to make sure we're voting, guys, because that's part of giving this network value, is seeing the governance process in action. As you guys know, just also an advertisement here, not really. Obviously, you guys know I'm not trying to make any money or really do any of that stuff, but I do these hikes on a bi-weekly basis. So if anybody's interested in learning about cryptocurrencies, we do have a meetup here. It is called EOSIO, Project EOSIO in Phoenix. And we do bi-weekly hikes and get-togethers. So if you're interested in learning about cryptocurrencies, if you know anybody here in the Arizona area, please share this content with them, and maybe they'll find it helpful. Beyond the referendum voting and beyond Brendan Bloomer's talk about his, Block 1's proposals in terms of referendums, we also heard that they're still evaluating different vertical channels, and it kind of suggested, without, I don't have it, this is totally, off the cuff without notes or anything, but from what I recall, he mentioned that he's looking at different verticals for Block 1 to engage in, and also keep it in mind not to alienate some of the existing ventures that have already been started through different teams around the world. So it kind of suggests they're taking a much long-term view on this, maybe like a 5 to 10 year plan, which is nice and refreshing as opposed to what some of the larger other projects we see within the crypto space. And it just kind of gives an nod to them, some of the tremendous work they've done. I think they've done a pretty good job in terms of demonstrating their ability to foresee a lot of issues in terms of treasury management, which other projects failed to do. And now Block 1, because of those decisions, is in a much better position to do some other things. So I wonder if we'll see the same thing with some of the projects they decide to engage in, and we may start to see some of those first announcements here within the next month or two, which is really exciting because it's basically in the first quarter, And so we're already through January. We have, February and March, and that'll be the first quarter. So, in my opinion, I expect some of those announcements. I also expect the wallet out here soon. I don't know if there's been some delays because of the government shutdowns. That would be interesting to also know. But, I think we're closer now than ever before. And the other thing is, this is not investment advice, but one of the things is, think about it. Last year, the platform did not even launch, and we were above $2. And now, platform is launched successfully. There's VC money that's been committed. We have a thriving community and developer community, and yet the price is lower than it was last year before the launch. I just think that means that, in my opinion, the opportunity is better now than it was even last year, even with all the hype and stuff. So I think you guys know what I'm doing. In terms of the overall Bitcoin space, continue to hover between $3,300 and $3,800. I think we're going to continue to do that. We may even drop to $2,900. Again, not investment advice, but for myself, just slowly accumulating on a bi-weekly basis on both these, especially with all the geopolitical uncertainty. I think it's a tremendous opportunity. So that's what's going on there. We also heard from the EVA folks on EOS that they successfully got approval from I believe it was the Quebec, city of Quebec, to move forward with their pilot. So they have become the only other venture outside of Uber to gain approval, which is pretty significant. So I think if they're able to demonstrate the technology, it bodes well for using this in other cities, maybe even the United States. So really excited about that, guys. And I'd love to hear what you guys think about that. Do you think if, EVA's able to basically provide a better business opportunity over Uber, do you think it will spur more adoption, especially with the use of different token models? I'd like to hear what you guys have to say about that. So that was pretty big news. We also heard some announcements about some games coming out. We know games is a huge market. Besides some of the other promises of entertainment, games is a huge market in terms of gambling dApps. So we've seen a lot of success with EOS Dice and others. But now the question is, will other games, will VR type games spur adoption for this technology? That awaits to be seen, but we're seeing the first announcements of this stuff this first quarter of 2019. So exciting things, guys. A lot of things to consider and contemplate. And then it just goes back to, this whole technology dystopian scenario maybe being averted through technologies like EOS, where there's now restoration of privacy and the ability for a new America in terms of a digitization of the economy. And Max Keiser had an interesting, show today on that whole topic, where there's this, narcissistic type culture that has sprung up, and this command and control from the traditional San Francisco companies, and how it's, sort of redefining what it means to even be a human and what it means to be civil. And he asked the question, if we are even civil at this point anymore, and what these new tools like Bitcoin, blockchain technologies might provide in terms of answers to fight back against that. So I'd encourage you guys to take a look at that as well. You guys know how I feel about that. Obviously, I'm in the space because I believe in it. And it's not about money or Lambos. It's kind of more about that, kind of where we're heading as a society, and hopefully having technologies like these to maybe counteract some of that. So this is EOS Phoenix. I'm going to sign off. I hope you guys enjoy this content. Consider hitting that like button and subscribing. All right, peace.